Okay, hello. So I'm just here to go through the homework solutions for week 2 for last week's homework. Feel free to have solutions that are slightly different to what are here, but these should be pretty much the direction in which you've been doing the homework questions. So I've just split the questions up into different files here just so when I run them you can just see which one's running, but obviously it's easier for you to just do it all in the one file. So I'll just start with question 1. So question 1 was, write a complete Python program that asks the user to enter a real number and calculates and prints the area of the circle with that radius using the formula a equals pi r squared. Use 3.14 for the value of pi and don't worry about controlling the number of decimal places in the result. So as you can see, I have the solution here. It's not very long, but what I've done is I've taken in a number from the user using the input function here, and this prompt will show up when you run it, and then they will input their number, and then I'm saving the number there after typing in into this variable here, user input. So if they type in 5, user input will be equal to 5. Now, because the question says to use a real number, which is a float, which is a number which has numbers after the decimal point, we have to convert the number they've inputted into a float so that we're able to do the maths later on. So I'm basically, in this line, I'm just taking whatever number they've put in, changing it or casting it to a float and saving that number back into this variable, real number. So now that I have my number ready to go, I can put it into the formula down here, which is just 3.14 times real number to the power of 2. So 2 stars is to the power of. And then I'm just saving that back into a variable a, maybe a for answer, it can be whatever you want, and I'm just printing it to the screen. So I'll just run that there and show you how that's working. So enter real number, I'll put in 5. And then there you go, there's our answer down there. Now I'm not using Spider, but this is very similar to the exact same basically on how it would work in Spider. So now on to question 2. Question 2 is very similar to question 1. The only difference is we're using Python's inbuilt value of pi. So to do this, we have to import math. There's no reason for us to input math here, even though we are doing math. It's only if you wanted to use math.something in which we want to input it. So math.pi is basically a way of telling Python I want to get Python's inbuilt value of pi from this library. So same as before, taking in a number from the user, saving it into user input, changing it into a float so we can use it, saving it into this variable here. And then basically it's the exact same as question 1, except instead of 3.14, we are putting in math.pi and then same printing it at the end. And I'll just show you there's a slight difference between these answers. So I put 5. As you can see in the first, we got 78.5, now we're getting 78. So it's just showing you kind of the difference in doing calculations with programming. So on to question 3. So question 3 was develop a program to find a solution of the linear system, and then there's 2 formulas. So basically what we want to do is we want to take in 6 inputs as a float and output x and y, which are done with the formula. So this is a little bit of a longer solution, so I'll go through it slowly. So here we have all of the inputs. So we have to take in 6 variables. So you need 6 lines of taking in a number from the user. So I have my input, which says that I'm taking a number in from the user. And then I also have float. So as you can remember from the first one, I used 2 separate lines to cast it to a float. But if you want, you could cast it, you could change the number that they're inputting into a float in the one line to make it a bit easier. I mean, it's not too bad doing 2 lines if it's just 1, but when you have like 6 or maybe even 10 or maybe 1,000 inputs, it's easier to just do it in the one line. So that's just basically telling Python, take in whatever number the user has typed into the keyboard and then change it to a float and then save it into the variable at the end. So I'm just doing this 6 times for all of the variables we need to take in. So I'll have all the different values that the user typed in all of these variables. Now, so we're going to come back to the if and else, but down here, basically, I'm just taking the formula that was in the question, and I'm just setting x to be the first formula and y to be the second formula. That's all you need to do. You have all of the values here already, so that should be no problem. Now, the last part of the question is why there are if and else statements in the solution. It says, make a program to accommodate the case when a1 times b2 minus a2 times b1 is equal to 0. So the reason that that would be a problem is because you are dividing this number by this number. And obviously, if this number was equal to 0, you can't divide by 0. So before you do the calculation, you just want to make a quick check that they're not going to want to try and divide down here in our calculation by 0. So just say if this part here is equal to 0, you have to use two equals to make sure that you know it's being equals to 0. Then print to the screen can't divide by 0. And that will do what that will do, instead of doing the calculation and breaking the program, it will just say, sorry, you can't do that. But then, let's say you put in correct values here, it will say, is it equal to 0? No, it's equal to another number. That's fine. Else, so that's not true. We'll go down into here and then we'll print X and Y. So I'll just show you how that's working. So just pull this up. So input your first number. These are all floats, so you can also put in 3.56, 0.98, for example. You can put any value that you want in here. So as you can see here, it's given us an answer, which means that this was obviously not equal to 0, and we got in here and we're able to do the calculation properly without worrying about dividing by 0. So I'll just run that again and see if, sometimes if you put them all the same, that might throw an error, just to show you guys what happens. Yeah, so basically what happens is, these values have made this formula equal to 0. And if we were to get rid of this line, it would basically cause an error down here. And so we just want to avoid that beforehand and say can't divide by 0 in case, instead of this coming up in a big error saying error, calculation error. So that's just the reasoning for that. So yeah, so that's the third question. And then on to the fourth question, which is a bit of a tricky one. It says, write code in Python to calculate how many seconds there are in a number of weeks inputted by the user. So this is a bit more of a maths question, but it's just showing you how you can do maths questions in Python. So you can see I have a few comments here, which I'll go through why they're commented out, but I'll just go through the code that's not commented out. So basically, I'm taking in the number of weeks from the user. Please enter the number of weeks. And then as before, I'm casting it to an integer. So that's basically saying take the number they've put in and change it into an integer so I can do the maths down here. So as you can see, I have it commented out, doing it in 2 lines. But, again, just doing it in the 1 line is a lot easier. So if they put in the number 3, changes the number 3 into the integer number 3, and then saves that into the variable number of weeks. So now we come down here, and there are 2 ways of doing this question. Neither of them are, they're both the exact same, they both give the exact same answer. So the first one, this one's easier, actually this one's the easier one to explain. So we want to do the number of seconds in a week. So you have to basically obviously do a bunch of multiplication to try and figure out. So I've just broken it up into steps here to make it easier for myself. So I said the number of days in a week is the number of weeks times 7 days in a week. And then the number of hours in a day is the number of days times 24, because it's 24 hours in a day. And then the number of minutes is the number of hours times 60, because it's 60 minutes in an hour. And the number of seconds is number of minutes times 60, because there's 60 seconds in a minute. So I've basically just broken it down each type of the way so I don't get confused. And then I've printed the number of seconds here. Another way to do it, you could just do it in one step. You could just multiply it by 7, by 24, by 60, and by 60 in just all in one step. And then that'll give you, I'll show you, they'll give you both the exact same answer. So let's say 4 weeks. Yeah, and then this is the first print statement up here. And then this is the second print statement. As you can see, it doesn't matter if you break it up into as many steps as you want. They will give you the exact same answer. It's just different ways of doing it. So I think that's all for the homework. Again, if you've done it a different way, but you've gotten the same answers down here, that should be okay. Maybe call one of us over during the lab session to have a look at it if you're not sure if you did it a very different way. But yeah, so that's all the solutions.